licenses of Dr. David Siegel, according to the board's report. The Mass BORIM licenses more than 40,000 physicians, osteopaths, and acupuncturists. The board investigates complaints and determines sanctions. According to its page on MassGov, Katzenberg could not be reached for comment. His office at 208 Main Street is closed. The next story reads, Lowell Committee Approves Alternative School Hire by Elizabeth Dobbins. Lowell. Tip too far one way and students' needs won't be met. Tip too far the other way and the district's over $1.6 million deficit will worsen. For 20 minutes last Wednesday, the Lowell School Committee debated this balance following a request by Acting Superintendent Janine Durkin. She asked the committee to release $105,000 from the suspense account to hire a coordinator for the McHugh Alternative at Sullivan School, which serves 5th and 6th grade students who have struggled in the traditional classroom. Ultimately, the school committee approved the request in a 7-0 vote, but several members expressed concern only for students were enrolled in the program, which already has 2 teachers. In many cases, alternative schools are the thing that will finally work for a student and help turn things around and get back to a traditional academic environment. School committee member Connie Martin said, I do think it's challenging when we're talking about 2 teachers and now adding an administrator. The ratio is pretty dramatic. School committee member Jerry Nutter also paused at the ratio. Through both Nutter and Martin ultimately supported the position. Keeping a student who needs specialized services in the traditional classroom can disrupt the learning of all other students, Nutter said. When asked if the district can afford this expense amid a financial crisis, Durkin said the district expects income through revolving accounts, and the money in the suspense account was specifically earmarked for this position. We do have the money set aside in the suspense account for that purpose, she said. If we don't come up with this solution, there may be some out-of-district placements. Though the expense may seem high for the number of students, Durkin said the students who struggle most can take up one administrator, sometimes 2, for a full day. They deserve someone's attention, she said. She added the program has the potential to expand to 10 to 12 students if the need arises during the year. Peter Holtz, principal of the Bartlett Community Partnership School, made an appeal to the school committee to provide funding for the position before the discussion. We want to do it right, he said. We don't throw kids away. The next article is by Rick Sobey. It's titled, Lowell Responds to Election Concerns Raised by Galvin. A day after Secretary of State William Galvin announces his office would play a role in the Lowell election office during the primary recount and said his office would investigate the department's procedures, the city's top lawyer addressed the various election irregularities. City Solicitor Christine O'Connor wrote in a letter to Galvin's office on Tuesday that Lowell's election office implemented post-election actions that are not typical of our practices and procedures. In addition, she mentioned in the letter that much of the election equipment was purchased in 1998. The age of the machines plus extreme heat conditions last week adversely affected some of the city's machines, O'Connor said. Moreover, City Manager Eileen Donahue reassured residents on Tuesday that everybody's vote was counted. There's no concern of any lost votes, Donahue said during the City Council meeting. The city's letter on Tuesday comes in the wake of Galvin initiating an investigation into the practices and procedures of Lowell's election department. Galvin's office has cited several administrative errors in the processing of ballots and the tallying of state primary results as factors in deciding to take a role in the primary recount. He has ordered a district-wide recount in the 3rd Congressional District primary after Democratic candidate Dan Coe, who came close behind in second, submitted enough signatures. According to state-certified figures, Lori Trahan beat Coe by 122 votes, less than 1/2 of 1% of total votes cast. There were 3,227 blanks out of 88,818 ballots cast, including 1,256 in Lowell. The recount is bound to focus on those ballots counted as blank and whether the voters made an indication of a vote that wasn't registered by local election officials. At the council meeting, Donahue emphasized that Galvin is not taking over the city's election office. The state has appointed a designee to assign in the recount process. We will continue to work cooperatively with the Secretary of State's office, and our focus is on the recount, O'Connor said at the meeting. In O'Connor's letter to Galvin on Tuesday, she wrote that Lowell is committed to elections running with integrity and competence, and the most recent election was no exception. Following the primary, O'Connor said she received a call from Galvin's office on Wednesday regarding the possibility of a recount. Galvin's office said to make sure all ballots were secured until further notice. As a result, the city implemented a protocol that all ballots would not be accessed by any member of the election office without a police officer or an attorney from the law department present. This unusual post-election procedure was intended to ensure candidates and their campaigns that in the event of a recount, all ballots and post-election materials remained secured. She also discussed irregularities cited in Galvin's letter from Monday, including how hand counts were not included in the precinct tally sheets submitted on election night. O'Connor said on election night tally sheets did contain all hand count results, and such tallying took place at polling locations. Machines were adversely affected because of their age and the hot weather. One at the Bailey School ceased operations in the afternoon, resulting in all ballots getting deposited into the side of the machine and becoming hand-counted ballots. At the end of the evening, all these hand-counted ballots were included on the precinct's tally sheet. The city will need to address purchasing new machines in the future, Donahue said at the council meeting. They're way past their life expectancy. That will be discussion for another day, she said. Galvin's letter also referenced a group of ballots stored in zipped nylon bags from 3 precincts. These ballots all appear to have write-in candidates, according to O'Connor. All of the ballots were processed through the ballot machines and included in the machine's tabulations. These ballots were erroneously placed in blue election-grade zip bags instead of ballot bins, O'Connor wrote. Both the bags and bins, once they returned to City Hall, were placed in the city's locked vault. Galvin also said a significant number of precincts did not reconcile the number of ballots voted as compared to check-in and check-out lists. The list contains the number of residents who checked in and checked out of the polling location after voting. O'Connor responded that those lists have remained sealed in the election vault and have not been processed. Finally, Galvin stated that absentee ballots received after the close of polls are not eligible to be counted. O'Connor responded that no absentee ballots received after the close of polls were counted. The election office maintains all time-stamped records, which it can make available for inspection, O'Connor wrote. City Councilor Rita Mercier praised Lowell's Director of Elections, Edna Machak, at Tuesday's meeting. "I have the utmost respect and confidence in her ability," Mercier said. "She knows the laws." City Councilor John Leahy also said the city's elections office does a great job. "This is a black eye we don't deserve," he said. The recount will be held later this week in Lowell. Results need to be in by Monday. The next article comes out of Bill Ricca. Word is out, NETAAC is good for business, by Elizabeth Dobbins. About 3 years ago, National Sales Associates, Inc., a Lawrence-based printer cartridge company, wanted someone with financial savvy to give them a boost in an industry that faces stiff competition from China-based companies. Company president Joseph Endyke found a consultant who not only had the qualifications he wanted, but a suggestion for how the small company could pay her fee. Apply for funding from the New England Trade Adjustment Assistance Center, or NETAAC. The nonprofit is a two-person operation out of North Billerica that serves companies negatively impacted by exports across New England, though it started in 1981 and is funded by federal grants, most recently $1 million from the Economic Development Administration. Endyke said he had never heard of it before meeting the consultant. Lisa McHatton, NETAAC Executive Director, said he isn't alone. "We like to joke around that we are one of the best-kept secrets," she said. Their budget, entirely from annual grants from the U.S. Department of Commerce, does not allow the use of funds for marketing. So, advertising is word of mouth, she said. About 10% of their funding goes toward operational costs, and the remainder is offered to manufacturers through $30,000 to $150,000 matching grants. To qualify, businesses must show a recent decline in sales, decreased employment, or increased import. The most recent NETAAC annual report lists 16 for NETAAC and 10 other trade adjustment assistance centers around the nation. McHatton said her organization received $1 million down from the $1.5 million in recent years, reflecting a dip in overall funding for these centers this year. She said the change may reduce the number of manufacturers they can help annually by 3 or 4. "We try not to turn anyone away," she said. McHatton said over a quarter of their clients are in Massachusetts, including companies in Wilmington and Tyngsboro. During and following the 2008 recession, businesses often asked for assistance in financial restructuring, she said. Today, in a better economy, the focus is on management information systems. Recent tariffs enacted by President Donald Trump's administration, which have spurred retaliatory tariffs from some countries, have had a mixed effect on local manufacturers, she said. Businesses that buy materials from overseas have been negatively impacted, but for U.S. businesses that supply material tariffs have helped create an equal playing field, according to McHatton. They're usually turning to local resources, so it's actually a good thing, she said. That concludes today's Lowell Sun. This is Irene at TIC, and thank you for listening.
You've just heard news stories from the Lowell Sun. Please stay tuned for more programming.
thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
This is volunteer reader Jennifer Rajala broadcasting from Worcester, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Lawrence Eagle.
Hello, this is Irene at TIC, and I'll be reading from the Lawrence Eagle Tribune. The first article is Man Charged with Starting Fires Near Water Street. Residents tell investigators he's a firebug, by Jill Hamersinski. A Nightingale Court man described to investigators as a firebug, was charged with setting a series of recent fires in his neighborhood off Water Street. A couch and a car were burned, but the most serious incident occurred Monday afternoon when firefighters extinguished a two-alarm blaze at 2 Nightingale Court. William Alfred LaRochelle, 51 of 6 Nightingale Court, was arrested Tuesday morning and charged with burning personal property, burning a building, and numerous counts of burning motor vehicles, including a recreational vehicle and a Volkswagen Jetta, according to a report filed by State Trooper Michael Sweet. Sweet worked with local police and fire department investigators after the fires broke out starting last Thursday. On Monday afternoon, a two-alarm fire occurred on Nightingale Court, which significantly damaged an RV and home in receivership there. Both the home and RV were uninhabited at the time, and no one was permitted on the property. No injuries were reported. Investigators said they spoke with La Rochelle's sister, aged 59. My brother Billy lit the fire. He lights fires all the time, she said, according to Sweet's report. Another area resident told investigators La Rochelle was a firebug, according to the report. Investigators questioned La Rochelle about Monday's fire, and he told them he wasn't home, but had gone to the grocery store and a takeout restaurant. He said he left the area when some individuals who were trouble in the neighborhood. While speaking with La Rochelle, investigators saw a large amount of black soot on his left palm and fingers. I asked William how he got the soot on his hand and observed a clear change in his affect and behavior. William then reached into a tabletop to his left, which was covered in water from the rain, and began washing the soot from his hand. William did not attempt to explain how the soot got onto his hand, Sweet wrote in the report. In addition to talking with residents, investigators also viewed surveillance video taken in the area. The videos show La Rochelle in the area before and after each fire ignited, according to the report. La Rochelle was brought to the Lawrence Police Department for questioning Tuesday morning. He immediately asked for an attorney, according to the report. He was held without bail after his arraignment on the charges in Lawrence District Court on Tuesday. He is due back in court Friday for a detention hearing, according to court records. In addition to Sweet, the incidents were investigated by Fire Captain Patrick Delaney, firefighter Patrick Ruiz, Fire Lieutenant Michael Armano, firefighter Joseph Maloney, and Lawrence Police Detective Harold Rogers. The next article is from Methuen, Changes Eyed in Police Organization by Lisa Kaczynski. A trio of city councilors is spearheading a reorganization plan for the police department with the aim of eliminating captains and scaling back superior officers in an attempt to save patrolmen's jobs. East District Councilor Steve Spaba, at-large Councilor Ryan Hamilton, and Central District Councilor James McCarty are invoking a clause in the city's charter that allows the council to reorganize, consolidate, or abolish city departments. Their plan, which they intend to present at City Council meeting Monday, comes as the council and Mayor James Yehuga remain at an impasse concerning rates of pay for the superior officers that could result in layoffs of patrolmen. Yehuga is holding to his plan to continue paying the 24 ranking officers at rates stipulated in a salary compromise agreement the council never approved. At Monday's meeting, he intends to ask again councilors to reinstate $1.8 million in funding to the police budget that he says would cover those salaries and prevent layoffs. But some councilors, refusing to give in to the mayor, say Yehuga's plan is financially unsustainable and are advocating for a reorganization of the police department in order to prevent the city from overspending its budget for the second year in a row. It's unfortunate that this had to happen, but we can't deficit spend, Hamilton said. We have to do something about it, and frankly, I don't know if there's another alternative. At issue are raises for the police superior officers that were set to take effect July 1st under a contract approved by the previous administration. A new method of calculating benefits would have seen the police department's 5 captains each earning $434,841 on average, according to the city auditor. The mayor's office and the Methuen Police Superior Officers Association reached a compromise in July that would scale that average pay back to roughly $188,206 for captains, but would still see ranking officers earning substantial raises overall. Yehuga went ahead with paying superior officers at the rates stipulated in the compromise, referred to as Memorandum of Understanding, despite the lack of council approval. The mayor also continues to advocate for the councilors to reinstate the $1.8 million they removed from the police budget, which he says would cover those pay rates and avert potential layoffs this fiscal year. If the council does not return that funding and the mayor continues to pay salaries under the memorandum rates, officials have said the city would run out of money to pay all of the police department's officers around February. The mayor's office has indicated that could result in steep layoffs, mainly because of seniority rules, out of the pool of 71 patrolmen, with estimates ranging from 20 to 40 officers let go. Saba, Hamilton, and McCarty at least remain unwilling to return those funds. Their reorganization plan, while not yet finalized, would cut back the number of superior officers in the police department, including eliminating the 5 captains' positions, and roll those officers back down to lower ranks. Doing so would violate the Memorandum of Understanding, meaning officers' pay would revert back to the high-end salaries in the original contract. But councilors argue doing so would result in fewer layoffs than if the city continues to pay captains, lieutenants, and sergeants at the memorandum rates. I'm trying to save as many patrolmen as we can right now, Hamilton said. The rumors going around about honoring the memorandum and cutting 20, 30, upward of 40 patrolmen, I think that puts the city at a public safety risk, and frankly, it really concerns me. Saba said he was trying to give the mayor's office the time to resolve the issue, but it became quite apparent they're not going to. This is really doing what's right. We need to be financially responsible to the city, to the residents, Saba said. Hamilton expressed hope the reorganization plan would be a temporary fix, not a permanent solution to the police contract woes. In fiscal year 2020, we can find a better solution, he said, adding, sadly, we've had to wait on the mayor's reorganization solution, and unless he presents the council with one, it seems as though we'll have to move forward to make sure the city is safe and in good hands. McCarty could not be reached for comment. Paul Fahey, Yahuga's chief of staff, said the mayor and police chief Joseph Solomon intend to make their case to the council Monday for reinstating the police funding. While councilors are building their case by saying Methuen is in a financial crisis, Fahey claims the city is not, and that the city's fiscal status could affect whether the department can legally lay off officers. The city's not in a financial crisis. The council's chosen to transfer that money to a different account, he said. The next story is from Salem. Case of man accused of stabbing wife continued to October, by Jill Harmasinski. A Lawrence man accused of killing his wife and the mother of their 3 children made a brief appearance in Salem Superior Court Tuesday morning. Joel Monegro, 32, is accused of stabbing Yesenia Monegro, 28, to death on Memorial Day. The couple had been together for 13 years and were planning to get a divorce, police said. Held without bail, Monegro was brought into the prisoner's dock in Superior Court. His defense attorney, Kevin Mitchell, had filed motions for Yesenia's medical records from Lawrence General Hospital and Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, where she was pronounced dead on May 28. Prosecutor Kate McDougall said she did not object to the request. The case was continued until October 25. As they did during the first-degree murder arraignment, nearly 24 of Yesenia's relatives lined 2 rows in the courtroom gallery on Tuesday. They wore T-shirts reading "R.I.P. Beautiful" with Yesenia's picture. Joel Monegro was previously ordered to have no contact, not even electronic communication, with the couple's 3 children, ages 10, 7, and 3. The children are being cared for by a variety of family members, as an aunt said previously. Monegro is accused of stabbing his wife multiple times on the afternoon of May 28, according to police and court records. If convicted of first-degree murder, Monegro faces life in prison without the possibility of parole. On May 28, around 5 p.m., Lawrence police went to the couple's Doyle Street apartment to a report of a double stabbing. A neighbor told police he had spoken to Monegro on the phone. "Call the police. We are both dying," Monegro told him, according to a police report. "We got into a fight and both stabbed each other," Monegro said to the police, to the neighbor, when he asked what happened, according to the report. Monegro also called the police that evening and told a dispatcher he and his wife stabbed each other and they were dying. Police say Yesenia Monegro, who was in a semi-conscious state, told a Lawrence officer, "He stabbed me." She was airlifted to Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, where she was pronounced dead at 7:44 p.m. The couple's children were with a relative at the time of the stabbing, police said. Monegro told police he and his wife were fighting about money and that he planned to move out of their apartment soon. He was initially arraigned on the murder charge in a hospital bed in an intensive care unit at Tufts Medical Center. Monegro is now held at Middleton Jail. The next article is from Haverhill. Haverhill looks at pedestrian safety after 2 hit Monday night, by Mike Labella. Crossing Main Street at Dudley Plaza can be dangerous to pedestrians, according to residents who live in that area. They say drivers often do not stop when they see people in the crosswalk, and that in some cases pedestrians cross outside of the marked crosswalk zone. The latest incident occurred Monday evening, when 2 people crossing Main Street were struck by vehicles in that area and almost at the same time. "I lived here 30 years, and I've seen a lot," said Richard Roy, 66, of 384 Main Street. The city installed bright yellow pedestrian crossing signs earlier this week, but I think the intersection could benefit from blinking yellow lights, caution lights that could help drivers slow down. Police are asking for the public's help in identifying a vehicle that hit and seriously injured a young man while he was walking across Main Street in the area of Dudley Plaza Monday night. Police said the vehicle that hit the 18-year-old victim left the scene. The victim was transported to Lawrence General Hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries. At this time, we have no information about that vehicle, Police Captain Stephen Doherty said. It is unrelated. In an unrelated incident that happened in the same area, the intersection of Main Street and Fifth Avenue, and around the same time, a 24-year-old Dorchester man was seriously injured while he was crossing Main Street in front of the plaza shortly after 8 p.m. Monday. Police said the male victim was initially taken by ambulance to Lawrence General Hospital and was later taken by helicopter to a Boston hospital. His condition, as of Tuesday morning, was critical but stable, according to police. Police said the compact car that hit the Dorchester man stopped and the driver was questioned by police, but the driver was not charged as of Tuesday morning. A state police accident reconstruction team helped Haverhill police in the investigation. While investigators were on the scene, police closed off Main Street at Fifth Avenue and rerouted traffic onto side streets. Doherty said the area where the two pedestrians were hit has a lot of foot traffic, as many people cross Main Street to shop at Dudley Plaza. It does have a lot of foot traffic there, and a lot of it crossing a major street. City Councilor Melinda Barrett said she plans to discuss the need for a possible pedestrian crossing signal at next week's council meeting. She described such as light as similar to the flashing pedestrian lights in the city installed on Bethany Avenue between Central Plaza and Mira Vista Senior Housing. In addition to the two people who were hit, Barrett's idea, and that he has asked Police Chief Alan Denaro to bring the issue of safety before the Traffic and Safety Committee for study. They will go out there and look at that intersection and see what can be done to make it safer and better, Fiorentini said. Further up Main Street near the Oxford Rehabilitation and Health Care Center, there were some pedestrian accidents, so we put in a streetlight to make that area brighter. And without complete streets programs, we're broke, and what we can do to slow traffic. Roy said he was inside his apartment Monday evening when he was drawn outdoors by the flashing lights of police vehicles. He said a man who apparently was hit by a car was on the street in front of his house being tended to by an officer. The man was sitting up, and you could see he had a huge bump in his forehead and blood on his arms. Roy said there have been numerous incidents of pedestrians and bicyclists being struck by vehicles at this busy intersection. He said many of those pedestrians were either heading to the 7-Eleven in Dudley Plaza or were leaving that convenience store and crossing Main Street to get to their homes in the avenues. He said many people do not use the crosswalk, but instead cross directly in front of Dudley Plaza. Sean Garand, 32 of 47 Lewis Street, said he always uses the crosswalk when going to and coming from the Salvation Army that is opposite Dudley Plaza. I'd say this is a fairly dangerous intersection. The city should install yellow flashing lights. Chris Millette, 31 of 26 Fifth Avenue, wonders if there's anything the city can do to change the habits of distracted or rude drivers. He said he always uses the crosswalk to get to and from Dudley Plaza, but that many drivers don't stop even if they see him. Many of them are rude, and it's mostly younger drivers, Millette said. You can install traffic lights and you can spend all the money you want, but at the end of the day, you can't change people. Anyone with information about the vehicle that hit the Haverhill teen is asked to contact police at 978-373-1212 to leave an anonymous tip. Follow the prompts. The next article is taken from the Associated Press. Concord, New Hampshire. A black former police chief backed by Trump administration won the Republican nomination Tuesday in New Hampshire's toss-up congressional district, while Democrats picked experienced establishment-backed nominees for both that seat and for governor. Eddie Edwards, who was endorsed by Trump attorney Rudy Giuliani, defeated 6 Republican opponents in the 1st Congressional District, which covers the eastern half of the state. A Navy veteran who also served as enforcement chief for the State Liquor Commission, Edwards is the second African American to be nominated to a U.S. House seat in New Hampshire. The district, which covers the eastern half of the state, was once reliably Republican, but has flipped in each of the past 4 cycles. In 2016, it returned Democrat Carol Shea Porter to Congress, but backed President Donald Trump. Shea Porter's decision to step down after 4 non-consecutive terms resulted in a swarm of candidates seeking to replace her, including Levi Sanders, son of Vermont Senator and former presidential hopeful Bernie Sanders. He came up far short Tuesday in an 11-way race won by restaurateur Chris Pappas, who would be New Hampshire's first openly gay member of Congress. Former Obama administration official Maura Sullivan raised more money than the other 10 candidates combined, but she faced criticism for being both new to the state and voting in general, having just moved to New Hampshire last year and acknowledging she failed to vote in several recent elections. Pappas is a former state lawmaker who is serving his 3rd term on the governor's executive council and runs a family restaurant in Manchester. He had the backing of the state's 2 Democratic U.S. senators and said he was proud that most of the money he raised came from within the state. Pappas told supporters Tuesday evening his campaign will be about decency, unity, and progress. He described meeting an LGBTQ student in Manchester who said she was unsure of her place in the community. She needs a role model and a champion, too, and I hope this historic victory tonight has some small impact in making her understand this fact. You, too, are welcome here, and regardless of who you are or who you love, the sky's the limit, he said. Edwards has sought to make the race about character and said he'd refuse to support his rival, State Senator Andy Sanborn, as the nominee after he was accused of sexual harassment at the State House. People demand change in Washington, Edwards said. They yearn for honesty, integrity, and leadership. They want to vote for someone who has served our country and understands the honor that comes with that responsibility. In the governor's race, former state Senator Molly Kelly defeated former Portsmouth Mayor Steve Marchand and will face Republican Governor Chris Sununu, who faced no primary opposition. Kelly said strong Democratic turnout should send a message to Sununu that voters want someone who will put the people first, not corporate special interests. A 5-term senator from Harrisville, she frequently emphasized her experience as a single mother who raised 3 children while putting herself through college. The people of New Hampshire know that I will fight for them every single day because I understand their struggles, she said in a statement Tuesday night. Chris Sununu should not underestimate me. I've been underestimated before. 7 Republicans were competing for a chance to face Democratic U.S. Representative Annie Kuster in the 2nd Congressional District. She, too, faced no opposition in the primary. Accustomed to going first in the presidential primary, New Hampshire voters were among the nation's last to nominate candidates for November, providing one of the final measures of the country's mood before November's midterm election. Rhode Island holds its primary on Wednesday, and New York follows a day later. The next article is from the opinion page. Cutting back and cleaning up. Can you make a meal without plastic? Not easily. Meat, chicken, and fish often come wrapped in plastic on styrofoam trays. Vegetables can come in a plastic clamshell box or plastic bag. Frozen veggies are in plastic bags, and bread is usually wrapped in a plastic bag with a square plastic clip or plastic-covered wire twist tie to hold it shut. Reducing the plastic we use and throw away or recycle daily is a challenge. Even if you're a dedicated recycler, there are countless items used daily that can't be recycled and end up incinerated, burned in a landfill, or dumped somewhere, so they wash up into our rivers and oceans. The tight market for our recycled materials, as reported on extensively this year, makes the challenge to reduce how much waste we produce even greater. This weekend marks the start of Coast Sweep, the Massachusetts piece of an international effort to organize people to clean beaches along our coastline. The Massachusetts Department of Conservation and Recreation is organizing many such efforts this Saturday, and the Alliance of Climate and Environmental Stewards, ACES, is collaborating with a variety of groups for cleanups from this weekend through mid-October. From DCR's Salisbury Beach State Reservation cleanup and Mass Audubon's Parker River National Wildlife Refuge effort, to the Gloucester Clean City Commission's cleanup along the Annisquam River, and a Revere Beach sweep hosted by 4Ocean, all on Saturday. People who care about our waterways and want to lend a hand can step up. And that concludes today's Eagle Tribune. This is Irene at TIC, and thank you for listening.
You've just heard news stories from the Lawrence Eagle. Please stay tuned for more programming. This announcement brought to you from PAC TV.
The Plymouth Public Library's Outreach and Senior Services Department provides services and collections of interest to older adults, such as large print fiction and nonfiction books, as well as audiobooks. Outreach also provides services to individuals who would otherwise not have access to library materials, such as people who are homebound, institutionalized, or who have a physical or mental disability. Outreach services include books by mail, deposit collections of regular and large print books, educational and recreational programs, recorded books, and reference assistance. Currently, 4 local nursing facilities partake in the deposit collection program, which brings the library to the residents by fulfilling specific requests, in addition to a variety of fiction and nonfiction titles each month. The large print collection includes New York Times bestsellers, inspirational reads, local interest and nonfiction, mysteries, romance, and biographies. With a collection of over 2,000 audiobooks, patrons with limited sight or who are visually impaired can enjoy reading again. For more details and information on any of the library's outreach services, call Tom Kaminsky at 508-830-4250. Again, that's Tom Kaminsky at 508-830-4250.
I'm more resourceful than I thought.
My suit can still make an impression.
My video games are still game changers.
And my lamp can bring others a bright future.
Because when I donate my stuff to Goodwill,
it helps fund job placement and training for people right in my community.
Now my stuff gets a second chance.
And will give someone in my community
a second chance too.
Goodwill. Donate stuff, create jobs. Find your nearest donation center at goodwill.org. That's goodwill.org. This message brought to you by Goodwill and the Ad Council.
thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
Hi, this is Volunteer Judith, broadcasting from Marshfield, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Fall River Herald.
Good day, everyone. Happy Wednesday. Today is Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. My name is Marita McKinnon, and I am your reader for today. I'll be reading the Herald News in the Fall River area for the Fall River News. We're going to begin with an article titled Not Forgotten. Battleship Cove Ceremony Remembers the Fallen of 9/11. This article is written by Kevin P. O'Connor, and it's out of Fall River. Of the things he admires, or one of the things he admires most about doves, is their willingness to risk themselves for the sake of others, William Damaris said. He watches his pigeons and doves when threatened by hawks. They cluster and circle, slowing their speed to make sure the weakest amongst them can fly in the safety of the group. So it is fitting to release them on September 11th at a ceremony to honor those who died on September 11th, 2001. The police, firefighters, and rescue personnel who risked themselves for the sake of others. The city held its 9/11 ceremony Tuesday morning at Battleship Cove, 17 years after the first of two jets flew into the Twin Towers in New York, New York. A third plane would crash in Pennsylvania after passengers banded together to stop the al-Qaeda members who wanted to crash it into the Pentagon. A fourth jet crashed into the Pentagon. One indelible image from the day is of police and firefighters running to the burning towers to get people out. Before the day was over, 343 firefighters, 72 police officers, and 8 rescue service personnel were dead. More have died since of respiratory illness, cancer, and suicide. The ceremony nationally now honors the sacrifices made by first responders. We saw our first responders step in and risk everything for us, said Christoph Shea, Executive Vice President of the Battleship Cove Museum. We stand with them, together as one, together as Americans. In the first minutes of the attack, the first responders showed the country the way to go forward, said Carl Sajeko, president of Battleship Cove. They are the people who made a difference on what should have been the most horrific day in the history of America, he said. Fire Chief John Lynch agreed. Firefighters and police did not hesitate to enter the burning buildings, knowing full well how dangerous it was. Despite the odds against them, they entered the buildings, saving countless lives, he said. We must remember this is a day of triumph, and triumph of Americans willing to sacrifice for others. The doves were released at the end of the ceremony just after trumpeters played taps. Volunteers stood at the front of the audience of more than 100 to hold the doves before releasing them. The doves circled once over Heritage Park, forming a tight cluster before heading east over the hill toward home. Damaris said he brought 20 doves that were raised and trained by his wife Paula Damaris. He brought 20 because that is the sum of 9 and 11. He brought white to symbolize peace. And the doves carry a message just by themselves, he said. They'll find their way home, he said. They'll stick together and they will be safe. Out of the Herald News, written by Kevin P. O'Connor, Not Forgotten. Turning to more news out of Fall River, Pats swing into action to celebrate new Fall River playground. This article is written by Josie Good out of Fall River. There were local and state officials, a New England Patriots cheerleader, the team's mascot, Pat Patriot, and even the Patriots Pro Football Hall of Famer, Andre Tippett. But after all, the ceremony and ribbon cutting at the Maplewood Park, it was the new Patriots-themed playground that was the real thrill for dozens of Latorney Elementary School students on Tuesday. The nonprofit New England Patriots Foundation, created by the Patriots owner Robert Kraft, donated $150,000 to build the theme playground. Mayor Jaceel Correa II, surrounded by Latorney students, recalled the day he got the call from Kraft himself about the donation. He said, "Mayor, we love what the city of Fall River stands for. We love Massachusetts. We love our fans down there. We love the kids down there, and we love to donate a Patriots-themed playground to the park of your choice here in the city of Fall River," said Correa. So, we're very happy, or really happy about that, and we felt this was the right one after looking at the parks and playgrounds and where the need was, and we got to work. State Representative Alan Sylvia said the new playground was desperately needed in the South End, in Maplewood Park. Tippett told the excited crowd that the league knows it has a lot of dedicated fans in the area, and we're really excited about helping to fund the project. "We couldn't have picked a better location, and we are overexcited to have it down here," said Tippett. He urged the students to dedicate 60 minutes a day towards physical activity. To keep your bodies nice and healthy, right? So this is another reason why we helped put this park down here, to keep your bodies nice and healthy. What do you think? Said Tippett. Are you excited about that? Are you going to do some chin-ups over there? Late last month, a playground crew from O'Brien and Sons, the company that provided the equipment and installation, and about 20 local volunteers began the installation of the new Patriots-themed playground with the signature red, white, and blue colors and the Flying Elvis logo emblem on the play equipment. After the ribbon cutting, and while the Latorney students descended on the new playground, Nancy Smith, the director of City Parks, called the new Maplewood Park feature fantastic. "I'm very pleased with the way it came out, and I'm so grateful to all the volunteers and sponsors," said Smith. "I couldn't be happier, and the response has been overwhelming. Everyone is thrilled." Out of Fall River, that's the new Patriots Playground. And now, just turning for a brief moment to the obituaries to pay our respects to those who have recently passed away. First here is Charles H. Patterson, Jr., 84 years old, of Swansea, Massachusetts, passed away on Sunday, September 9th, at home surrounded by his loving family. He was born in Seekonk, Massachusetts. Then we have Jerome Mendoza, age 62, who passed away Sunday, September 9th, at his home in Swansea, also surrounded by his loving family. He was the husband of Paula Mendoza, who he was married to for 31 years. Then Douglas J. Nassif. He was 53 years old, of North Dartmouth, the husband of Nelia Raposa Nassif, who passed away unexpectedly at home on Monday, September 10th, 2018. Douglas was born in Fall River. Then we have Frederick Fatabene. He was 80 years old, of Somerset, and he passed away peacefully on Monday, September 10th, 2018. He was born in Boston, and he was the husband of Mary Frances DeSoto for 36 years. Then we have John V. Carrero. John V., or also known as Jack Dog Carrero, was 76 years old of Westport. He passed away on Sunday, September 2nd, 2018 at Charlton Memorial Hospital. He was born in Fall River and has been a longtime resident of Westport. Then we have Lester Schwartz of Tiverton, Rhode Island. He was 95 years old of Tiverton, and he passed away on Friday, September 7th, 2018, of course, at the Fall River Jewish Home. He was the husband of 71 years to Dorothy Litcher Schwartz. Lester was born in Fall River. And last but certainly not least, we have William R. Howard of Swansea. He was 80 years old, and he passed away peacefully after a brief battle with cancer on Saturday, September 8th, 2018. He was the devoted husband of his recently deceased wife, Sandra A. Howard, whom they were together for 54 years of marriage. That is some of the obituaries that we pay our respects to those who have recently passed on. And now we turn to some sports news. We're going to turn to the Red Sox. Red Sox 7, Blue Jays 2. Very rewarding. Sox clinch playoff berth with 99th win. This comes to us out of Boston. The Boston Red Sox became the first team in the majors to clinch a playoff spot this season, rallying on pinch hitter Brock Holt's go-ahead home run in the 7th inning to beat the Toronto Blue Jays 7-2 Tuesday night. Guided by rookie manager Alex Cora, the Red Sox improved the best record in baseball at 99-46. They assured themselves at least a spot in the AL wildcard game while reaching the postseason for the third straight year. The AL East leading Red Sox began the night with an 8-game lead over the New York Yankees. Boston starter Chris Sale came off the disabled list and pitched one scoreless inning, striking out 2 and throwing 26 pitches. The Red Sox matched a team record by making it to the postseason 3 years in a row. They also did it from 2003 to 2005 and 2007 to 09, with the World Series titles in 04 and 07 included in each run. Ryan Brasser, 2-0, got the win with 1/1/3 innings of hitless relief as Boston used 7 relievers after limiting Sale in his return. Now Brian Tepera, 5-5, took the loss. Blue Jays rookie starter Ryan Borucki took a 2-0 lead in the 7th before Boston scored 4 times. Stephen Pierce hit a RBI triple and Holt connected with 2 outs. Kevin Pyler had a RBI single for Toronto during a 2-run 6 when Devin Travis scored the game's first run on a double steal and botched defensive play by the Red Sox. Congratulations to them. They're heading to the postseason. We're going to now turn to the opinion section of the Herald News, and we're going to read an article titled Material Things Left Behind Ahead of a Terrifying Storm. This comes to us from Pawleys Island in South Carolina. Tuesday morning, I did what millions of people have done in hundreds of places for centuries. I picked the few favorite items that I could take with me before abandoning my home to the fates of an impending disaster. They're only things, I told myself, which intellectually we know to be true. But emotionally, we become attached to our things, and I confess to this material weakness. I don't just own things as one owns a sofa. I collect things of beauty, utility being the least of my concerns. That said, if I may share, my approach to collecting is strictly passive, meaning I don't seek things out but instead wait for them to find me. I'd rather do without an invite the ordinary into my cave. Lamps are a particular weakness of mine. Indeed, a former longtime neighbor has promised that when he delivers my eulogy, he'll carry a lamp to the lectern. He claims that every time he looked out his window, I was walking down the sidewalk with a lamp. Despite an inaugural surfeit of tabletop fixtures, an antique black and white lamp recently whistled a catcall as I strolled past, and I married it on the spot. Intended for a desk, it's shaped from metal in the form of an elephant. The base is indented with spaces for a fountain pen, pencil, and a small bottle of ink. Did I need such a folly? Absolutely not. Do I adore it? Immensely. Among other treasures I left behind, a plaster of Paris torso of my then 10-year-old son, a 3-foot-tall white porcelain baby Bacchus, a large painting of a blonde woman wearing red glasses and sitting on a beach. These small accoutrements to an aesthete's life are irreplaceable sujeiras. But then they really are just things, I told myself, as I drove inland in the pre-dawn darkness toward the higher ground of our family home in Camden. Winding along South Carolina's blue highways, first light revealed a dense ground fog. I tried to make out the familiar shapes of hay bales that dot the fields in formations that seem both random and intentional. A field mouse's Stonehenge, perhaps. Other landmarks greeted my passage, an especially pretty church, a series of canopied drives leading to well-kept farmhouses, a distressed abandoned barn. Thinking of Hurricane Florence as she ambled toward the Carolina coastline, my senses seemed more attuned to details that I tried my darndest to memorize. I turned on the radio to catch the latest and only then realized what day it was, September 11th. Was it possible that 17 years ago, or 17 years had passed? Goes to show, tempus fugit, no matter what you're doing. The juxtaposition of the storm and the terrorist attack gave me a few kernels for thought, which, given the demands of the day, I managed to expand into the providential. My headlights had just skimmed a roadside sign with hand lettering that said, "Pray for our country." I hadn't noticed it before. South Carolina's rural roads mostly feature crosses to mark the spots where loved ones have died in auto accidents, or place cards that say Jesus saves. I keep meaning to stop and photograph them, but for various reasons never do. Next time, I tell myself. Finally, the day's eyes are wide open. I arrived in Camden, went into my office and turned on the small TV set that sits on my desk. President Trump was speaking in Shakesville, Pennsylvania, where Flight 93 went down. For the passengers who sacrificed themselves so that others might live, there was no next time. Suddenly my beautiful things embarrassed me. Neither those who died nor the survivors fret over things that they left behind. Of that much I'm certain. Only people and their dogs matter. The living, breathing, loving, grieving, and the dying. Certain things cannot be replaced, and I'll be sad if destruction and loss visit me this week. But ultimately, things are ornaments to our mortality, touchstones that affirm our reality and protect us, however briefly, from the alternative of no thing. Coincidentally, my husband recently texted me this quote from the philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche. "We have art in order not to die of the truth." When Florence finishes with us, human need necessary will displace the longing for our lost things. Human need necessarily will displace the longing for our lost things, but in their stead, we may rejoice in the beauty of the human spirit, which, ever resilient, will get back to the business of art in good time. This whole article, this opinion piece, has been written by Kathleen Parker. She's a nationally syndicated columnist. Now turning to Fall River, S-Star plans conference on women's health issues. This article is written by Deborah Allard, once again out of Fall River. It's no secret that women are often the primary caregivers in their household. They care for their children, aging parents and pets, add in a full-time job or multiple part-time jobs, and it's a recipe for illness and stress. That's where medication enters this tangled scenario. Women are prescribed prescription medications, not just opioids, but also benzodiazepines, if I'm pronouncing that correctly, at a higher rate than men. And just like men, long-term use or misuse of those medications can lead women down a path of addiction and overdose. The Stanley Street Treatment and Resources, with a $20,000 grant from CVS Health, will offer Women's Health Matter, a free conference given by 3 of S-Star's female healthcare providers. Now, locally, the free conference will be offered on Tuesday, September 18th from 8:30 a.m. to noon at White's of Westport. Breakfast will be provided, and similar conferences will be scheduled for the Worcester and Boston areas. I'm excited that we have the talented Fall River to offer this important conference statewide, said S-Star CEO Nancy E. Paul. Paul said in a press release, the overall goal is to develop group treatment specifically geared to women and to utilize funding to make women aware of S-Star's services. Dr. Jean L. Bailey said the addiction gap is narrowing between men and women. Women may suffer depression and other anxieties at a more frequent rate than men. They also may see their physician more often than their male counterparts and may suffer more ailments and pain due to gynecological issues, trauma, stress, and pregnancy. Benzos and opioids are common prescriptions for this. Opioids include medications like codeine, morphine, oxycodone, and fentanyl. Benzos include Xanax, Klonopin, Ativan, and Valium. They've become a coping drug for general anxiety, said social worker Robin Quinterno, who will be one of the lecturers at the event. And they lose their effect, so a higher dose is needed, added nurse practitioner Susan St. Armoire. When such medications are used for a short period of time, there's generally no long-term effects, but a longer duration, some may be prescribed benzos for years, can lead to dependence. Mixing benzos and opioids together or drinking alcohol when on those medications can lead to unintentional overdose. The woman, including Bailey, Quinterno, and St. Amois, will discuss the hidden dangers of long-term use of these drugs, mixing medications, and withdrawal. They will tackle why some prescription drugs may affect women faster than men and why treatment may be more difficult, plus ways that women can find support. Attendees will also learn about the history of drug use and how it pertains to women. We are pleased to support the work that S-Star does in the community, and we look forward to working with them to fulfill their program's mission, said Eileen Howard Boone, CVS Health Senior Vice President of Corporate Social Responsibility and Philanthropy. Registration to the conference, which is open to the public, is needed by September 14th, which is a Friday. Some continuing education credits will be available for healthcare workers. Now, to reserve a spot, you can email them at KEDWARDS, so that's K Edwards at ssstar.org. Or you can call 508-324-3500. Again, 508-324-3500. And again, this is about the Women's Health Matters Conference on women's health issues. We're going to turn to some quick Just a quick local update here about fall hours for ice cream. So fans of Somerset Creamery's awesome ice cream will have to slow it down a bit. The new fall hours for the 2 Somerset locations are Sundays to Thursdays from noon to 9:30 p.m. and then Fridays and Saturdays from noon to 10 p.m. and Sundays from noon to 9 p.m. Now, the County Street location will be closing for the season on Columbus Day, and the Route 6 location closes for the season on October 28th. Just something to take into consideration. And before we wrap up today's edition of the news in the Fall River area, we're just going to turn once again to the opinion section of the newspaper. And this in particular is a letter to the editor. It's titled A Blank Ballot for Governor Baker. This article is written by Ronald Beatty out of Barnstable County, Commissioner Barnstable. So this is the letter to the editor. Your September 6th article, Mayor Correa endorses Baker Polito ticket and re-election bid, states that the Democratic Party mayors of Springfield, Revere, Fall River, Fitchburg, Woburn, Newburyport, Lawrence, Lowell, Westfield, and Braintree have all endorsed Republican Governor Charlie Baker. To be frank, such endorsements by elected Democratic Party officials only serve as further evidence that Baker is himself a Democrat masquerading as a Republican. Baker's excessively liberal positions on many issues of concern, along with his tax and spend fiscal policies, coupled with his rabid animosity towards President Trump, nailed the coffin shut on any legitimate claim he may try to make of being a Republican. As an elected Republican official, I, for one, have made the decision not to support Governor Baker in the November general election, and instead will do exactly what he did to President Trump in 2016, which is to blank the ballot on him. Once again, letters to the editor here, and it's from Ronald Beatty, who is the Barnstable County Commissioner in Barnstable. And real quickly here, locally, we're just going to go over some of the local pets that are available for adoption. The lovely animals at the Forever Paws Rescue Center are ready for their forever home. So a couple of them here we'll make mention of right now. We have Taffy, who is a cute little bunny. She's a pet bunny. It says Taffy is a little messy, but we think she should be forgiven since she's adjusting to pet bunny life. She needs time and affection, and she's bound to be a wonderful furry family member. And now we have Sauce, who is a 2-year-old excited boy dog who wants someone to love. He has a lot of energy and would like a home with people who are active and ready to dote on him. And last but certainly not least, we have Olivia, the cat. She's been through a lot in her short 2 years and has lived with many other animals. She's adjusting to shelter life, but hoping to head home alone home, and to her own bed as soon as she can. Once again, this is the Forever Paws Center for Pets. If you have any questions or would like to find out more about some pets available for adoption, give them a call, 508-677-9154. Again, it's Forever Paws, and 508-677-9154. That wraps up today's edition of the news for the Fall River area. My name is Marita McKinnon. I've been your reader for today. Until next time, everyone, have a great Wednesday, and I'll talk to you next time.
You've just heard news stories from the Fall River Herald. Please stay tuned for more programming.
Unity Message of Hope, a non-denominational ministry serving people who are blind or visually impaired, has a virtual library of downloadable .brf Braille Unity publications, an audio lending library along with daily word in Braille, available free of charge. If you would like more details and information on this, please call toll-free at 866-421-3066. That's 866-421-3066. Or send your email requests to message-of-hope@unityonline.org. And if you would like to download Unity books in .brf format, simply log on to www.unity.org/Braille.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
This is volunteer reader Leo Frappier, broadcasting from Worcester, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the New Bedford Times.
Hi, everyone. This is Jeff reading the New Bedford Standard Times for Wednesday, the 12th of September, 2018. Our first story is headlined, "This Storm is a Monster." Wilmington, North Carolina. Motorists streamed inland on highways converted to one-way evacuation routes Tuesday as about 1.7 million people in 3 states were warned to get out of the way of Hurricane Florence, a hair-raising storm taking dead aim at the Carolinas with 140-mile-per-hour winds and potentially ruinous rains. Florence was expected to blow ashore late Thursday or early Friday, then slow down and wring itself out for days, unloading 1 to 2.5 feet of rain that could cause flooding well inland and wreak environmental havoc by washing over industrial waste sites and hog farms. Forecasters and politicians pleaded with the public to take the warning seriously and mince no words in describing the threat. This storm is a monster. It's big and it's vicious. It's an extremely dangerous, life-threatening, historic hurricane, North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper said. He added, "The waves and the wind this storm may bring is nothing like you've ever seen. Even if you've ridden out storms before, this one is different. Don't bet your life on riding out a monster." Some hope for divine intervention. "I'm prayed up and as ready as I can get," Stephen Hendricks says as he filled up gasoline cans near Conway, South Carolina. More than 5.4 million people live in areas under hurricane warnings or watches on the East Coast, according to the National Weather Service, and another 4 million people are under a tropical storm watch. President Donald Trump declared states of emergency for North and South Carolina and Virginia, opening the way for federal aid. He said the federal government is absolutely, totally prepared for Florence. All 3 states ordered mass evacuations along the coast, but getting out of harm's way could prove difficult. Florence is so wide that a life-threatening storm surge was being pushed 300 miles ahead of its eye, and so wet that a swath from South Carolina to Ohio and Pennsylvania could get deluged. People across the region rushed to buy bottled water and other supplies, board up their homes, pull their boats out of the water, and get out of town. A line of heavy traffic moved away from the coast on Interstate 40, the main route between the port city of Wilmington and inland Raleigh. Between the 2 cities, about 2 hours apart, the traffic flowed smoothly in places and became gridlocked in others because of fender benders. Only a trickle of vehicles was going in the opposite direction, including pickup trucks carrying plywood and other building materials. Long lines formed at service stations, and some started running out of gas as far west as Raleigh, with bright yellow bags, signs, or rags placed over the pumps to show they were out of order. Some store shelves were picked clean. "There's no water, there's no juices, there's no canned goods," Kristen Harrington said as she shopped at a Walmart in Wilmington. At 8 p.m., the storm was centered 725 miles southeast of Cape Fear, North Carolina, and moving at 17 miles per hour. It was potentially a catastrophic Category 4 storm, but was expected to keep drawing energy from the warm water and intensify to near Category 5, which means winds of 157 miles an hour or higher. Florence is the most dangerous of 3 tropical storms in the Atlantic. Tropical Storm Isaac was east of the Lesser Antilles and expected to pass south of Puerto Rico, Hispaniola, and Cuba, while Hurricane Helene was moving northward away from land. Forecasters also were tracking 2 other disturbances. The coastal surge from Florence could leave the eastern tip of North Carolina under more than 9 feet of water in spots, projections showed. This one really scares me, National Hurricane Center Director Ken Graham said. Federal officials begged residents to put together emergency kits and have a plan on where to go. This storm is going to knock out power days into weeks. It's going to destroy infrastructure. It's going to destroy homes, said Jeff Byard, an official at the Federal Emergency Management Agency. Forecasters said parts of North Carolina could get 20 inches of rain, if not more, with as much as 10 inches elsewhere in the state and in Virginia, parts of Maryland, and Washington, D.C. One trusted computer model, the European simulation, predicted more than 45 inches in parts of North Carolina. A year ago, people would have laughed off such a forecast, but the European model was accurate in predicting 60 inches for Hurricane Harvey in the Houston area. So you start to wonder what these models know that we don't, University of Miami hurricane expert Brian McNulty said. Rain measured in feet is looking likely, he said. The storm forced people to cut their vacations short along the coast. Paula Matheson of Springfield, Oregon, got the full southern experience during her 10-week RV vacation. Hot weather, good food, beautiful beaches, and finally, a hurricane evacuation. Florence interrupted her stay on North Carolina's Outer Banks. It took Matheson and her husband nearly the whole day Monday to drive the 60 miles off the barrier island. It was so beautiful. The water was fabulous. 85 degrees, Matheson said, pausing a moment. I guess that's a big part of the problem. Florence's projected path includes half a dozen nuclear power plants, pits holding coal ash and other industrial wastes, and numerous hog farms that store animal waste in huge lagoons. Duke Energy spokesman Riot Mosier said operators would begin shutting down nuclear plants at least 2 hours before hurricane-force winds arrive. North Carolina's governor issued what he called a first-of-its-kind mandatory evacuation order for North Carolina's fragile barrier islands from one end of the coast to the other. Typically, local governments in North Carolina make the call on evacuations. We've seen nor'easters and we've seen hurricanes before, Cooper said, but this one is different. And in more local news, New Bedford makes a new push for the Fisheries Center. Amy Chivaroli. New Bedford, the nation's top fishing port, is renewing its effort to get the government to move its Fisheries Center from Woods Hole to New Bedford. The fishing industry wants the regulators for the first time ever to be in New Bedford because they see the benefits of good science and cooperative research, said Ed Anthus Washburn, the director of the New Bedford Ports Facility. On Tuesday, elected officials, the Port Authority, and members of the fishing industry sent a letter to NOAA asking a new feasibility study maintaining the city is the best location in the Northeast Fisheries Science Center, currently in Woods Hole. The letter addressed to Timothy Gallaudet, Ph.D., Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Oceans and Atmosphere for the Department of Commerce and the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, was also signed by representatives of fishing vessels from home ports in New Bedford and Fairhaven and parts of Maine, Rhode Island, New Jersey, Virginia, and North Carolina. The push isn't entirely new. In March of 2016, a letter addressed to NOAA said the agency had a rare opportunity to further the center's mission and restore its credibility in fishing communities by moving to New Bedford. NOAA spokeswoman Terry Frady confirmed Tuesday that in a latest study, New Bedford was considered as a location. But Woods Hole is the preferred alternative location recommended in the business case analysis. The recommendation is the Woods Hole is the most valuable location for NEFSC headquarters given the proximity to our core scientific partners, allowing us to leverage resources and create efficiencies to benefit the government, Frady said by email. John Hare, Science and Research Director for the Northeast Fisheries Science Center in Woods Hole, said while the center has co-hosted roundtable meetings with the Port Authority and has been working to strengthen relations with SMAST, the list of fishing vessels spoke to him. We have a lot of work to do in terms of proving our engagement, which goes beyond New Bedford, he said. We need to collaborate with industry across the region, he said. The Northeast Fisheries Science Center is made up of labs in Orono, Maine, Narragansett, Rhode Island, Milford, Connecticut, and Sandy Hook, New Jersey, with the Woods Hole lab as the headquarters. Hundreds of fishing businesses from up and down the East Coast, along with numerous elected officials and other organizations, recognize the fundamental problem posed by having NOAA scientists far removed from the fishermen they regulate, Mayor John Mitchell wrote. About the process, NOAA completed a facilities strategic planning study in 2013 for its Northeast Fisheries Science Center lab in Woods Hole, which recommended completing a business case analysis, a way to identify the preferred investment alternative for NOAA. NOAA's Office of the Chief Administrative Officer is in charge of BCAs for the agency and initiated one for this project in 2014. 4 phases were completed early last year. Phase 1 involved identifying mission and operation requirements, creating screening criteria, screening potential locations, and identifying a good fit. Phase 2 applied best fit criteria to the good fit alternative locations and identified Barnstable County as offering the best fit for the center. Phase 3 homed in on the preferred alternatives within Barnstable County. Phase 4 compiled this information into a written report that included the preferred alternatives for the location of the center. Asked to respond to the letter, Congressman William Keating, a candidate for re-election, said, "My greatest concern and my greatest fear is that NOAA's decision will move the center out of Massachusetts entirely. Currently, there is significant competition from an out-of-state site, so my focus remains at this time on keeping it in our state and specifically in our district." His opponent, Republican Peter Tedeschi of Marshfield, also responded with an emailed statement to the Standard Times. NOAA's decision on where to site the new Northeast Fisheries Science Center should take factors into consideration such as timelines and cost-effectiveness of the proposed project, as well as the benefits of collaboration and engagement with the fishing industry. These factors and others should be used to evaluate multiple sites within a study that is made available to the public. This is an example of a lack of accountability by the federal government, and any investment by a government agency with taxpayer dollars should demonstrate both careful analysis and transparency. Hare said the business case analysis is an internal planning document, but said it has been made available to organizations that have asked for it, although he said he didn't think it's available online. Asked if a new study would be conducted, he said he's not aware of any plans to conduct a new business case analysis for the region. And in local education news, UMass campuses make U.S. News and World Report's list. State House News Service. For the 3rd straight year, the University of Massachusetts in 2017 was among a few public university systems in the U.S. to have all of its undergraduate campuses ranked as national universities in U.S. News and World Report's Best Colleges list. The National University designation applies to comprehensive universities that offer undergraduate, master's, and doctoral programs and are committed to producing groundbreaking research. Of about 3,000 four-year post-secondary institutions in the U.S., 312 universities have the classification, UMass said. According to UMass, the peer systems with all campuses in the National Universities list are California, Missouri, Maryland, and Alabama. And the University of California and the University of Maryland are the only peer systems with all undergraduate campuses ranked and at least one in the top 100 overall. UMass Amherst ranked 26 among public universities, up 3 spots from last year, and number 70 among all national universities, public or private, on the annual rankings. UMass Boston, unranked 3 years ago, in 2017 climbed 11 spots to 191 and just outside the top 100 public universities at 104. UMass Dartmouth, rated a national university for the first time in 2015, was 215 and 121 among public universities. UMass Lowell ranked 157 and number 80 among public institutions. Rankings are increasingly important to prospective students and their families when determining the best value in higher education. So this is outstanding news, not just for UMass, but for the Commonwealth. UMass Board of Trustees Chairman Rob Manning said in a statement, "These rankings confirm that UMass is fulfilling its mission to deliver a high-quality, affordable education that transforms lives." Blue Economy Plan celebrated at UMass Dartmouth. The South Coast wants to be the Silicon Valley of marine industries. Progress toward that goal took a step forward Tuesday as Congressman William Keating and Joseph Kennedy visited UMass Dartmouth to celebrate a federal grant announced last week to help develop a blue economy corridor along Interstate 195. "I have always said that this region will be the Silicon Valley of marine technology and science," Keating said at a press conference. "It'll be that cluster, the Blue Corridor, and today is the day we start to put all those pieces that were here together." The $600,000 grant from the U.S. Economic Development Administration, which is part of the Department of Commerce, will find a multi-year project to study related industries, write a detailed plan, and begin to execute it. "The opportunities are immense," UMD Chancellor Robert E. Johnson said. He credited Hugh Dunn, Executive Director of the South Coast Development Partnership, with shepherding the project to this point. Dunn said the goal is to propel sustained economic development. The work that this initiative advances, workforce training, research and innovation, and branding of the region, will help return the region to the era of economic prosperity, he said. Johnson said the Blue Economy Corridor includes the nation's #1 fishing fleet, supporting industries, an emerging offshore wind industry, internationally recognized tourist attractions, and valuable business and academic connections in nearby Rhode Island and Cape Cod. At the center of it all, he said, is UMass Dartmouth. Technology and prototypes developed at UMD's Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship were on display. They include an autonomous and remotely controlled underwater vehicles, a prototype of a solar buoy, and images of floating docks with integrated solar panels on the walking surface. Power Docks, which make Blue Isle Solar Docks, is based at the Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. Anthony Barrow, managing partner at Power Docks, said the Blue Economy Corridor project comes at a great time. "I think it's very needed to bring our industry together and realize the immense opportunity that we have before us." Kennedy said the corridor project demonstrates what can be accomplished across the public and private sectors and across community borders. "The South Coast is standing on the front lines of our nation's green energy future," he said. The first year of the grant will be devoted to studying the industry, supply chain, areas for potential research, and gaps in the skill set of the workforce, Dunn said. The Public Policy Center at UMD will conduct the study in collaboration with 2 regional planning agencies, the Southeastern Regional Planning and Economic Development District and the Cape Cod Commission. The second year will involve creating a regional alliance across sectors and writing a strategic plan. And in the third year, work will begin in research, workforce training, and finding export markets for existing products. Our next article is sad and local. Middleborough family awaits justice in fatal crash, by Joe Pelletier. Middleborough. Leo Carney started having heart issues soon after his wife died. He couldn't sleep at night. He had bouts of heart murmurs and atrial fibrillation. He was in and out of the hospital. There's a medical explanation for all that, surely, but the problem's more simple than that. Carney was heartbroken. Deborah, his high school sweetheart and wife of 40 years, was gone in an instant after a car crash near the Bourne Bridge in July of 2017. "They say a lot of your emotions go right to your heart," he said Monday, sitting in the dining room table of his Middleborough home. "I guess that's true." The Carney family is hoping that Wednesday might bring some semblance of closure to this tragic tale. Jose Portillo, the driver of the tractor trailer involved in the fatal crash last year, will appear in Falmouth District Court with potential for a verdict and a sentencing in the vehicular manslaughter trial. Carney said he's been told that Portillo of Lynn will likely plead guilty by admission of facts and accept a sentence that includes 5 years probation and a 10 years loss of driver's license, depending on the judge's discretion. Portillo was charged with vehicular manslaughter, 1 count of speeding, and 3 counts of negligent operation in the July 2nd, 2017 crash. Deborah Carney, a longtime food service employee in Brockton Schools, was returning from a day trip on Cape Cod with her family at the time of the crash. The vehicle was slowed by traffic, nearly at a complete stop, the Carney family said, at the rotary before the Bourne Bridge when Portillo's Freightliner tractor-trailer struck their Honda CR-V from behind. Portillo's Freightliner tractor-trailer was going 62 miles per hour at the moment of impact, Leo Carney said. Deborah Carney was killed instantly, and all 4 other occupants in the vehicle, including her daughter and 2 granddaughters, as well as her daughter's mother-in-law, were taken to the hospital. 14 months later, Carney said he was still struggling to come to terms with the accident. He and Deborah met as students at Brookline High School in 1970 and were married in 1977. "I'm numb," he said. "I'm still numb. I lost my best friend." Photographs of Deborah can still be found all over the Carney home. She loved cruises, and many of the images are backdropped by a ship's railing and a sparkling ocean. There's another image of her and Leo as teenagers when they attended a dance at Brookline High School in the 1970s. Hanging amid a wall of family pictures is a title that reads, "Because someone we love is in heaven. There's a little bit of heaven in our home." Carney said he had mixed emotions towards Portillo, but held no malice. He actually advised the district attorney's office that he didn't want the man to face jail time. "I just want to move forward," Carney said. "I can't see this guy waking up that morning and saying he was going to kill somebody. Putting him in jail seems senseless. It's not going to help me move forward." Carney, who's expected to speak Wednesday before the courtroom to give an impact statement, said he would like to hear Portillo tell the truth of that day. It remains unclear exactly what led Portillo to drive at such a high rate of speed less than a quarter mile from the Bourne Rotary, where the speed limit is 25 miles per hour. To this day, his family continues to feel the effects of that accident 14 months earlier. His granddaughter, Paige Silvestro, suffered a traumatic brain injury in the crash and will undergo her 4th cranial surgery next month. She requires a walker, and while her mind is still sharp, she struggles with her speech. But she's been one of the bright lights for the Carney family, always with a smile on her face. Asked about her upcoming brain surgery, she grinned Monday and said she'd be fine. She's already done it 3 times. She's so positive, Leo Carney said of his granddaughter. That's been one of the good things, to see her progress. Oral wants mass lottery move examined. State House News Service, Boston. As she wages a campaign to unseat Treasurer Deborah Goldberg, State Rep Kiko Oral has asked that a House committee look into Goldberg's handling of the planned Massachusetts lottery move from Braintree to Dorchester. Oral, a Lakeville Republican running for treasurer, last week sent a letter to House Committee on Post-Audit and Oversight Chairman David Linsky asking that the committee assess the planned move and how the decision was reached. "I'm deeply concerned about the cost of this move to the Commonwealth and the negative impacts that a disruption of the lottery will have on local aid to our communities," Oral wrote. She added, "I believe this decision will have a negative effect on each community in the Commonwealth and needs to receive the utmost scrutiny by the legislature." Linsky was not available Monday, but his office confirmed that he received Oral's letter and is reviewing it as part of his normal course of business. The Lottery Commission voted unanimously in March to authorize a lease for a new lottery headquarters in Dorchester, leaving its Braintree home of almost 50 years. Rent for the new headquarters will be significantly higher than the old lease, Lottery Executive Director Michael Sweeney said in March, costing the lottery roughly $1.4 million for the first several years. The 10-year lease in Dorchester is expected to cost a total of $15.2 million. The lotteries provided information regarding the move to anyone who was asked and will continue to do so, Goldberg spokeswoman Chandra Brock said. Since raising the prospect of a move in early 2017, Goldberg has said it will help the lottery as it attempts to modernize itself, especially as it tries to attract younger and more technologically knowledgeable employees. Turning to the opinion page, under National View, Bloomberg writer Max Nison's headline reads, "Obamacare is poised for a midterm booster shot." Health spending accounts for 18% of U.S. GDP, and disagreements about government's role in paying for these costs and ensuring coverage have become major issues on the campaign trail this year. Decisions made by voters in the midterm election could have a significant impact on the status quo. The biggest battleground, as usual, is Obamacare, but with a twist. Until now, individual health exchanges have drawn the most attention. But after several tough years marked by drama, lawsuits, and sabotage by the Trump administration, with insurers finally sticking around instead of fleeing and more moderate premium increases, that market finally seems to be stabilizing. Bar an unexpected GOP surge in the midterms, that trend is likely to continue. The real potential for change this year comes instead from the Affordable Care Act's quieter half, its expansion of Medicaid to cover a larger subset of low-income Americans. If things go well for Democrats in November, as many expect, with congressional wins providing momentum down ticket and on statewide ballots, that will set the stage for Medicaid expansion to, well, expand. The chance that more states will embrace the program offers a much more concrete and likely way towards greater health coverage than a near-term exchange resurgence, let alone Medicare for All, which won't be a serious policy possibility until at least 2020. Already, Medicaid enrollment in expansion states has grown by 13.7 million since 2013. And that's with a number of large conservative states refusing to accept federal funds and cover more people. By contrast, 11.8 million people were enrolled in individual exchange plans at the end of the 2018 open enrollment period, and that number could decline further with the end of the individual mandate. Medicaid expansion is explicitly on the ballot in Utah and Idaho, and maybe in Nebraska as well. It's most quietly so in Maine, where Governor Paul LePage is refusing to implement a Medicaid expansion his constituents voted for last year. The Democratic candidate vying to replace him would start the expansion right away, while the Republican candidate is not a fan of the program. With Virginia already set to expand Medicaid next year, we could have 5 more expansion states in the next couple of years. The expansion is also sticky. Once a state has expanded health coverage to thousands of vulnerable people, and the federal money starts flowing, it's very hard to undo it. In the 11 states that have yet to expand Medicaid and won't vote on it this year, shifts in state house control could put it back on the table. That concludes a high proportion of states, most notably Texas and Florida, that have large numbers of uninsured people. Medicaid expansion also benefits the individual market, according to several studies. Yes, it siphons off patients, but those tend to be particularly low-income and unhealthy populations, so expansion can lead to a better risk pool and more stability. There are plenty of things that could hold Medicaid back. There's no guarantee that the referendums will succeed. A good election for Democrats would only be a small step on a very long journey towards the holy grail of expansion in Texas or Florida. And expansion states have enacted or are attempting to enact rules that will eat at enrollment. Arkansas, for one, just kicked more than 4,500 people off its Medicaid rolls for failing to comply with a work requirement. But despite these efforts, there's a real path for more Americans to gain health care, and it runs through Medicaid via the ballot box. Max Nissen, as I said, is a Bloomberg opinion columnist covering biotech, pharma, and health care. For our last minute or so, turning to Dateline, Cincinnati. Coroner. Gunman wanted to kill as many people as he could. The county coroner on Tuesday described the gunman in the fatal shooting in downtown Cincinnati as determined to kill as many people as possible without hesitation, and said that she had met one of the victims. Dr. Lakshmi Samako reported on autopsy findings from the Fifth Third Bank building shooting last Thursday. She said the gunman, who used a 9mm handgun, fired both standard bullets and hollow point bullets, which often inflict more damage to bodies. Well, that's all the time we have for the New Bedford Standard Times today. This is Jeff, and I'll be back next Wednesday.
You've just heard news stories from the New Bedford Times. Please stay tuned for more programming. Dear listener, we have some good news to share with you. The Talking Information Center is expanding its programming lineup, and for the first time, we will be offering a 24-hour, 7-day-a-week schedule. This means that we will no longer be including any repeats in our regular broadcast schedule. We have added many daily local newspapers to fulfill the requests of listeners across the state. And while all the programs we currently air will still be available, you may notice that many of them have changed the times when they air to accommodate the expansion. If you have access to the internet, we always invite you to visit our website, ticnetwork.org. There, you can listen to your favorite archived shows at a time that is most convenient for you. The new expanded TIC schedule will begin airing Monday, September 17th. If you would like a copy of the new program schedule mailed to you in either large print format or on audio CD, please give us a call at 781-834-4400. That's 781-834-4400. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Massachusetts Reading Network, a window to independent life in your community from Cape Cod to the Berkshires.
This is volunteer reader Robin Sidden broadcasting from Worcester, Massachusetts. Stay tuned for more coming your way next.
WRRS Middleborough, Pittsfield, WVBF Middleborough, WDJM Framingham, WUML Lowell, WLLO Londonderry.
Coming up next from the Talking Information Center, news stories from the Cape Cod Times.
This is the Cape Cod Times. Today is Wednesday, September 12th, 2018. Headlines: The losses continue. 9/11 ceremony pays tribute to first responders still dealing with health impacts of terror attacks, by Cynthia McCormick. For former demolition supervisor John Field, who lost part of his foot removing steel beams from the pile at Ground Zero, the 17th anniversary of the 9/11 terrorist attacks was not just a day to remember the fallen. It was a time to recognize those struggling with 9/11-related cancer and respiratory illnesses, as well as those who have succumbed to the diseases in the weeks, months, and years since 4 hijacked planes crashed into the World Trade Center, the Pentagon, and a field in Pennsylvania. It's hard for me to say, let's remember those we lost, because 9/11 is still continuing, Field said during a ceremony Tuesday morning at the 9/11 Memorial Garden at the Yarmouth Police Department. The number of 9/11-related disease fatalities hovers around 2,000, Field told a group, including U.S. Representative William Keating, Democrat of Massachusetts, and Dennis Yarmouth Regional School District Superintendent Carol Woodbury. And thousands more are dealing with 9/11-related illnesses in the privacy of their homes and workplaces, Field said. 9/11 for those guys is every day, said Field, founder of the Feel Good Foundation, which was instrumental in lobbying for legislation passed in 2011 that provides monitoring and treatment for first responders and other survivors of the September 11, 2001 attacks. They're battling their illnesses, they're taking their medications, and they're watching their friends die, Field said. He said he recently added 163 new names to a memorial wall he maintains near his home in Wisconsin, New York. In the next few years, more will have died of 9/11-related illnesses than were killed that day from the terrorist attacks, said Richard Palmer, a retired warden from the New York City Department of Correction, which was in charge of a temporary morgue after the Twin Towers fell at the World Trade Center. An estimated 70,000 to 100,000 people have been affected by contaminants and debris that spilled into the environment the day of America's deadliest terror attack, Keating said. I lost a lot of friends that day, said retired New York City Fire Department Lieutenant Michael O'Connell, who also traveled to the event in West Yarmouth. O'Connell said he was still losing friends to 9/11-related cancer and has faced health challenges of his own. Diagnosed in 2007 with a rare life-threatening immune disorder when his wife was pregnant with their couple's first child, O'Connell went on to have 2 more children. But he can't shake the memory of the day he arrived at the World Trade Center from Flushing as a 25-year-old probationary firefighter. In your head, you're thinking, I'm going to be pulling people out of there, O'Connell said. But what awaited were bodies, rubble, smoke, heat, and toxic materials. Field said it was so hot that work boots melted after 4-hour shifts. He nearly died after developing gangrene and sepsis when he lost part of his foot to a piece of falling steel while working with crews to load 250 trucks in 12-hour shifts. Placed in a medically induced coma after his organs shut down, Field said he spent 11 weeks in the hospital recovering. After he was denied benefits, Field said he formed the Feel Good Foundation in 2005 to help other 9/11 survivors secure theirs. Considered one of moving forces behind the James L. Zadroga 9/11 Health and Compensation Act, Field said more than 10,000 people have been certified with a 9/11 cancer since the towers fell. Maureen Toohey Bedford of West Yarmouth, who organized the event at the request of Yarmouth Deputy Police Chief Stephen Zaros, said she knew of Field from her cousin Danny O'Shea, a firefighter who got sick after working on the pile. Field helped arrange for O'Shea to get a kidney transplant, Toohey Bedford said. That is not her only 9/11 connection. A longtime friend, Michael Diaz-Piedra III, whose photograph Toohey Bedford propped against a lectern during Tuesday morning's event, died during the terrorist attacks. The losses were huge, and the losses were endless, Toohey Bedford said. During the anniversary event, retired State Police Sergeant Daniel Clark sang patriotic songs, and Dennis Yarmouth Regional High School freshman Alana Rooney brought some in the crowd to tears as she sang Somewhere Over the Rainbow. Bagpipers played Amazing Grace, and DY student Alex Ryan played taps as Zaros laid a red, white, and blue wreath in memory of 9/11 victims and members of the military who lost their lives in service of their country after the attacks. The fallen includes Zaros' 21-year-old son, Marine Corporal Nicholas G. Zaros, who was killed by a roadside bomb in Afghanistan in July 2009. Despite the horror of 9/11 and the continuing fallout, Field could not help but reminisce about the way Americans felt connected and bound together in the days after the attack, despite their political affiliation, color, or religion. We should have bottled it, Field said. There are times now we need it. Mashpee tribe's land still in trust. Our own country is attacking us, Wampanoag leader says of federal decision, by Tanner Stenning. Mashpee. The U.S. Department of the Interior will continue to hold the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe's land in trust until a legal challenge to its status is finalized, a spokeswoman for a division of the agency said Tuesday. Consistent with our practices and procedures, the department will continue to hold the tribe's land in trust until a final court order is imposed, said Nedra Darling, a spokeswoman for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. On Friday, the Interior Department sent a letter to Tribe Chairman Cedric Cromwell, informing him of the agency's determination that the tribe was ineligible to have land taken into trust because it was not under federal jurisdiction at the time of the passage of the Indian Reorganization Act in 1934, and therefore did not qualify under a definition of Indian spelled out in the law. Interior officials had previously found in 2015 that the tribe qualified under another definition, allowing the federal government to take 321 acres of land in Mashpee and Taunton into trust on the tribe's behalf. The Department of Interior was sued in 2016 by neighbors of a $1 billion casino project the tribe proposed for its reservation land in Taunton. U.S. District Court Judge William Young ruled in 2016 that the federal government did not have the authority to take the land into trust in the way it had, remanding the decision to the agency for reconsideration. The tribe's appeal of Young's 2016 decision is still pending in the U.S. First Circuit Court of Appeals. The Interior Department will not take action with respect to the tribe's land until that appeal is decided, Darling said. In November, the appeals court approved a request by the tribe that it be allowed to file a status report within 10 days of the Interior Department's decision, according to court documents. The lawsuit brought by the Taunton neighbors, as in similar cases, rested on the interpretation of 4 words, quote, now under federal jurisdiction. Frustrated tribes seeking trust status for newly acquired land with the federal government over the years, most notably the Narragansett tribe's efforts in Rhode Island, which resulted in the Supreme Court decision known as Carcieri versus Salazar. David Tennant, an attorney representing the plaintiffs in the Taunton case, said Tuesday before Darling's comments that he expects the federal agency to unwind the 2015 decision so that it is consistent with Friday's decision. The land is not lawfully in trust. The land was not lawfully declared a reservation, Tennant said. We certainly expect the Interior to take steps to recognize that reality. If the Interior Department doesn't move to take the land out of trust, his legal team will be back in court requesting that Young order the agency to do what they are required to do, Tennant said. It's not rocket science, he said. On Tuesday, Cromwell said Friday's finding by the Interior Department is the first instance in which the Carcieri decision is being wielded by the agency to terminate a tribe. If it stands, it would be the first time since the termination era, a period from the 1940s to the 1960s, when Congress pushed to end tribal independence by removing federal protections, that the federal government appears to be in a detribalization mode, he said. Our own country is attacking us, he said. America just attacked its own people. News of Friday's finding and its potential effects is still reverberating across Indian country. On Tuesday, the National Congress of American Indians issued a statement condemning the Interior Department's decision, saying it severely restricts the tribe's sovereignty in its ability to exercise meaningful self-governance. The group demanded an immediate response from the department as to whether the ruling indicates that the